Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a terrific guest. This is a young man that I have watched grow up from a little boy on the baseball fields and basketball courts of Ponchatoula to one of the most fine men in the area, bar none. He's an award-winning coach and teacher. He's a great dad. He's just an all-around awesome dude that I cannot wait to introduce you to and help you get to know. So with no further ado, Trevor Bergeron, welcome to the show. How you been, man? It's good to see you.
Oh, doing good. Teaching, we're in this fourth quarter. We got a little bit left to go in the school year. Right now, it goes fast. Each year, it goes really fast. It's on year 6, and I
Oh, wow.
I lose count every year.
I had lunch with a buddy yesterday who's got a senior in high school, and he was telling me about what senioritis his kid has. But I tell you what shocked me was last week when my kindergartner came home and told me how many weeks he had left in school. And I was like, dang, man, you counting weeks in kindergarten? But you're right. It gets going quick. Why don't we do this? Why don't we begin the show? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll kind of dig into some details. But just tell us about yourself.
Just Ponchatoula, born and raised. Grew up around and enjoyed being around. This town is one of the places it's home, and I still keep in touch, still very close friends with everybody that I grew up with. And that's the best thing about living in a small town, because you get this, is the guys that we played, I remember T-ball with, is that we're still together, is that we still keep in contact. And when anyone needs anything, that they're right there to help out. I ended up going to Southeastern and played baseball and got an education degree. Right after I graduated, I decided, I was like, I'm going to try working at a bank out. And I enjoyed my time there. But you kind of get the itch.
Right.
And the itch was I wanted to help out with younger people. And I was like, all right, let's see if I can go back into teaching. And I started out really, it was coaching for the Hammond Yankees organization. And then I was like, well, let's try to go and see if I can go back into high school. And thankful enough is that the administration at Mandeville took a chance on me. Mark Lyon Munson took a chance on me, and I've been there ever since, and I love it there.
Well, look, you say they took a chance on you. That was a smart bet. I mean, you had the pedigree there, right? Not just the education, but you played well at all these levels, high school, college, you name it. I remember well, you talk about growing up on the fields of this area. I remember well your team whipping mine when I was coaching, 20 years ago or whatever. I never had the benefit to coach you because your dad would always get you automatically on his team, but you were a heck of a player. It's neat that you mentioned that you're still such good buddies with the guys you came up with, and you specifically mentioned T-ball, because I'm going to be leaving here going to T-ball practice. My little boys are now 4 and 6, and as I'm coaching the older boys, or helping the coach on the older boys team, and I look over at the younger kids, and there's Logan Davis and Chris Pugh and all these young dads that did exactly what you just described. They came up playing T-ball together and being buddies their whole lives. And now they're out there, coaching kids and herding cats. It's been neat to see your generation do that, because like I said, I coached against you, but a lot of your best buddies, probably guys you're mentioning, are guys that I coach, the Corey Gonzalez's of the world. And you guys are just doing well. So tell me about, if you don't mind, who was your gang back in the day? When you think back to T-ball and Little League and PYB basketball, I think your mom was even maybe commissioner at one point when we were doing that, right? Who was kind of your crew, man? Who did you run with?
Oh man, gosh, it's a big one, and I'm hoping I'm not missing out on you. But man, I remember the first teammate that I had, we were yellow, and my first teammate that I could ever remember was Corey Gonzalez.
Oh, yeah. Now, was it baseball or basketball?
And his story is such a good story, is that he straight up was the first teammate I ever had, and he was my catcher growing up throughout youth baseball and then high school baseball. And I remember we were playing a summer league, and we had an injury to a catcher. And I remember our coach was like, I don't know if we could get a guy in. I was like, I know who I'm going to call. Can I call? And he had been out of baseball for a little while. And I'm like, hey, man, you want to come play? He was like, absolutely. He was there. And he caught the game. It was that was one thing that I always remember. Now, Steven Alexander and Wes Wilson and Alan Waddell and Johnny Ricks. Man, I can go on and on.
That's a heck of a crew. I'll probably see some of those guys later. You know, my Wes's little girl plays with my little boy last year and this year. Wonderful folks. I think, you mentioned Corey as a catcher. It's possible I coached him as an assistant coach in his first game as a catcher. I can very clearly remember coaching him in Coach's Pitch League. And I think he was a shortstop or a third baseman, but converting him in Coach Al Levine's yard. I don't know if you remember. Coach Al had his own practice field and batting cage.
If you're our age and and you play baseball, you knew Mr. Al Levine, and you knew his
field. He was a legend. Yeah.
And he instilled self-discipline. I'll tell you that.
You're right about that.
And
he was a great man. I was blessed to get to watch him in action and help him out. And seems like he went undefeated practically every year. It helped that he got to start with a left-handed ace and his grandson. And then he would always have Kevin Townsend's daddy helping him too. So he would always have a stable of aces to start. But yeah, he didn't just rest on his laurels. He coached his kids up. And but yeah, when you see your old teammate Gonzalez, ask him whether that was his first year catching. Maybe he possibly did it in T-ball too before I've ever met him. I don't know, but I certainly remember plucking him out of the infield because I was coaching the catchers for Coach Al and trying to teach him how to work behind the plate. But great guy, and I don't know if y'all ever got to play basketball together. He was a heck of a point guard. When you look at Corey Gonzalez, 2022. You don't think, hey, that guy was, leading the league in scoring, but he was in PYB. He was a beast.
No, going back now, this is super embarrassing to myself. I remember being saying, Corey knows this story. He always lets me know. It was us, and I remember and Steven Alexander, and I remember I felt like it was Steven Alexander and Joe Dan Benson on one team, and it was me and Corey on the other. And somehow John Mike Harriman, I think they were.
Oh, gosh. Wait. If we're talking Little League legend, that was the best PYB player I ever saw.
Oh, man.
I mean, he had to play up like 2 age groups.
Corey was like, I'm so competitive that I was like, I started crying. And I was like, this can't happen. This can't happen.
Right.
And Corey always lets me know about that one. It's and we always laugh about it.
There's so many great stories. I was at a camp out the other day. One of my good friends, Ben Richardson, turned 40. And so he had all his buddies out at the family farm, and they were, we're doing what you do. Birthday camp out, drinking a few brews around the campfire. And anyway, I don't know if you remember Chris Branch. He was a little older than you, but another one of these PYB legends. And they start telling the story. And I think I've told on the show before about one year I was coaching with my dad. And Big Rob Walker, whose son's now heading off to Michigan to play football, and his brother played in the NFL, and Rob played at Mississippi State. He's our center, so he's like a beast. My brother Louie, who was a heck of a player, is our point guard. And it's last minute, and Dad's drawing up the play, and he's like, "All right, Louie, you do this. Big Rob, you do this. Branch, you do this." We look for Branch, we can't find him. Well, he decided to go get the jump on the traffic at the concession stand. He was getting a Snickers and a popcorn. So Dad has been telling that story for 20 years, as have I. And for the first time ever, one of these kids at this campfire who now lives in Chicago, he was actually there. He's like, "Yeah, I remember that story. I was there. That's true." But I don't think anybody ever believed me on it. But But yeah, you get these wild competitive urges, and of course everybody's mad. And sometimes you see something like that, and it reminds you, this is little kid stuff. Maybe we don't need to take it too seriously. So you have that fine line between teaching folks discipline, learning about teammates, competitiveness, testing your own limits of what you could do, but not taking it too seriously, learning to laugh at it. As a guy who's now coaching, and of course you're coaching a much higher level than PYB or T-ball, how do you find yourself striking that balance? What are some things you look to?
And it's an open book. What I've learned is it's an open book, and you have to learn. Like, you learn your personnel, and your personnel is different from year to year.
Mm-hmm.
It's different from person to person. So what I've learned is that hold the accountability,
Right.
but learn a little bit about them, because the player is a lot different from whenever we were growing up. And
how so?
It's kind. I feel like they're specialized, and
Mm-hmm.
they play it year round.
Right.
And what they do is that they're probably, it's not as much of going from one sport. You don't really see the 2 or 3 sport athletes anymore. And when you get to them, you got to understand, like, what are they playing for? And if you can understand what they're playing for, like, you can get them motivated, because it's a motivation factor.
Yeah. And how do you get that out of them? I mean, how do you get kids to open up to you? Because I look at you and think of this youngster I used to coach against. They may look at you as this geezer who can't relate to their, young person life. How do you get them to trust you and open up so you can get that window into what they're playing?
And sometimes it's being hard on them, and then sometimes it's trying to laugh with them, and sometimes it's just going up to them and say, hey, look, everything's going to be all right, and just put your arm around them and show them that you care. Now, with the generation gap, I'm always laughing. The other day, somebody had said something back there, met somebody a Snap, like, where'd y'all meet? Snap. And I walk up and I was like, oh, y'all met at Snap Fitness. And they just started to laugh hysterically. And I'm like, well, what? They're like, not Snap Fitness, Snapchat. And I'm like, okay, that was pretty funny on my end, because I had no idea.
That's pretty good, man. Well, look, you're clearly connected, and I can see that in the comments that are coming in here, because you started to get some love here. Derek Wheat, who everybody knows, great local guy. His dad was on the show. He says he loves some Coach Trev. Derek, thank you for tuning in, man. Love your whole family, especially your cousin Brandon Perrin, my boy Luke's godfather, as Uncle Duke, as he's known in our family. He's a trip. I grew up on the ballparks with him. My neighbor, Brittany Marino, what a sweetheart. She says they love Coach Trev. You're the best kind of friend, and you're Carter's favorite pitching coach. So that's pretty cool, getting some parent feedback there. And our buddy Mandy Franks Braywick, who, again, was on the show. And both Brittany and Mandy have been on the show. So, folks, check out their episode if you're interested. Both their episodes were wonderful. But she says that you're a good friend and one of her favorite people in high school. And you never followed the crowd, in the sense that you never bullied anybody or made folks feel bad about themselves. You're a great coach and teacher with amazing parents, wife, and kids. So that's, and sister, of course. Don't forget that Mandy. So let's talk about your family a little bit, because Mandy Braywick is right. You do come from a great family, and I alluded to earlier. Your dad was always out there coaching baseball, basketball, everything I could ever see. Your mom was serving the entire league. I think she was commissioner and, running the concession stand. She did every job up and down you could volunteer for back then. And your sister, what a sweetheart. Everybody loved her. So tell me what it was like growing up in that house, and maybe tell me about each of those individual people and kind of what they meant to you.
Yeah, and man, my parents are very involved in it, and I'm very thankful for it. They whatever I wanted to do, they were like, we're going to get you there if you want to be all in for it. So the best thing is that, man, I was able to play every sport. when it was football season and I got a chance to play football. When it was basketball season, it was basketball and then baseball. I ended up specializing in baseball whenever I got into high school. But they like, I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Now it's a lot different now, the support that they give us, and
right.
and that's one thing of the situation that we're in. If we wouldn't have that support, it would definitely be a lot tougher on Kara and I, my wife. My sister, she's living in Baton Rouge right now, and she's got two.
I just want to point out one thing before we get into your beautiful sister, because I want to hear about her. But Mom has chimed in here to say you played every sport except hockey.
Well, I tried to do the rollerblade, Mighty Ducks too. When they skates, like I was really thinking that I was be a hockey player.
That's great. You'd be the Emilio Estevez of Ponchatoula now. If you pulled that off. So you were telling us about your sister. Did you say she's in Baton Rouge now?
Yeah, she's in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
They're doing well. They're two kids. They're not little anymore. They're both at Parkview Baptist, and they do another great job of supplying help for us. Yeah. My little brother is over there as well. So cool. They're all in Baton Rouge, and it's us. Next to my parents.
So you're still holding down the fort on South Thibodeau, right, where you grew up?
Yeah. I'm pretty much the like when my dad's building stuff. Like after the storm, that we had some damage to the barns and the sheds, and he's like, I'm getting up on the roof, and I'm like, I got to get up there with you, and I'm terrified of heights, and I hope that they stay up there for a long time.
Well, one thing I know about your dad, and I'm going to share another quote here. Our mutual friend Marshall Graves, who he and his son both have great episodes on this show, folks. Real fun to watch. But he says here that your family loves to serve others, and I saw that in that because that's kind of what you're getting at here. Is your dad's serving you and the rest of your family here, but y'all have served the whole community and clearly kind of passed that down. And Marshall says that you are now a great guy who's genuine in your approach to everything. Do you feel like your approach comes from modeling it from mom and dad? Is it something you feel like, inherent to you, or a mix? Where does it come from?
It has to, because I mean, my dad coached. He coached us, and he was very involved in everything. My mom was the commissioner of basketball, and really,
he was the Adam Silver of Ponchatoula back when I was coaching.
Yeah, and you look at it, how much it has grown to what it is now, and what we did not have that. And I remember my mom it was all weekend with the stuff, and it wasn't for her personal gain. It was for all of the kids that were in the community. And, I never really thought of it until just now. I mean, that's probably where I got it. I get it from. I just get it honest. I just saw it. And it comes natural.
Well, they must be really proud, because you are a chip off the old block. And, you're right. They did it kind of because the community needed it. I saw from, say when I was a kid, there was no PYB or PBA. I didn't get to play basketball until St. Joseph team in the 6th grade, because there was no option in City League. And then by the time my little brother Louis came along, these great guys like Mike Shansback and Larry and Linda Byers and all these guys stepped up and did it. And then your mom and others, picked up the torch and ran with it. But it was a heck of a lot of work, because like you said, there was no infrastructure. There weren't that many facilities. I mean, we were basically hopping around school gyms. And folks, if you've never been in the Perrin gym, let's say they didn't have a world-renowned architect setting that thing up, But it was kind of run, out of a lot of hardworking moms and dads' trunks and whatnot. And now we have, speaking of Derek Week and his dad was, they built parks, And now we have these great facilities, and it's really kind of neat with great guys running it, probably that you played against, right? I mean, like, Jacob Stevens has been on the show, and I remember him playing coach's pitch against my little brother. Great guy, doing a great job out there. It's been really neat to see. You're getting a lot of more love on here. So folks, thank you for chiming in with these comments. Folks who are watching that haven't commented, I want you to know we have the ability to share your comment live here. So if you're watching live, feel free to give Trevor a shout out. So our friend Mark Verbois, speaking of great coaches, he's now coaching basketball at Ponchatoula High School, and a dear friend of mine all the way from my PHS days. He says, Trevor, you're younger than he is, but he has a huge respect for you and what you've accomplished, and also how you carry yourself. And anyway, you can read the rest of it here. It's a very detailed comment that's just throwing a lot of love your way. And he talks about the great work that you're doing for autism awareness. So if you don't mind, let's get into that, because I know this is a topic that's near and dear to your heart. I can see your Ace of Heart, awesome pullover there. And you mentioned these guys earlier that you came up with, Johnny Ricks and Wes and Steven and Corey and all these buddies of yours. As I understand, most of them are now joining you on the board of Ace of Heart, or volunteering, or both. And you guys are doing wonderful things for families in the community dealing with autism and promoting awareness. What can you tell us about that? Starting with your own personal story of how you got interested in the topic, and then getting into the actual organization and what y'all do.
And I think it was Asher was born, I think it was 2016, and you just kind of sensed it had some developmental issues, and my wife really caught it, and I'm lucky to have her, because she caught it early.
And she's an educator like you, right?
Yes.
She's a teacher. Is that how you think she was able to pick up?
And I don't know. But
mother's intuition, maybe.
She was able, and she was like, look, there's some things, and let's go bring them in. And ultimately, we got the diagnosis of autism. It was early on, and we were able to get him into ABA therapy, which is great. And he's made strides, huge strides through all of that. But it's going to change your life with it, right? And you need a lot. Your support, you need that support, and because it's every day is within itself. You really look at it day to day. And when we got the diagnosis, I was in the middle of baseball season, and I didn't really stop and think about it. And then it hit me.
Were you coaching at Mandeville yet, or were you still Hammond Yankees?
Yeah,
okay.
I was, and we were and pretty much after a game, and I was coaching with Mark at the time, and it hit me, and that's where I found out that these kids, these players, man, they got your back. And so we're going through all of this, and it's new. Everything is new. You're gonna have great days, you're gonna have bad days, and you celebrate the little bitty triumphs, even if it's just a little bit. You celebrate it.
Right.
And from how we do the awareness is, I always look at it like this, and a lot of people think of it as, hey, it's got to be acceptance. I'm like this, is that if you can make everyone aware, that's where the acceptance comes from. You can't really start to add unless you know how to add. You can't do math without adding and subtracting and all
right.
that. So you have to be aware, and the story was where I'm like, all right, this is where I'm going to get into awareness of it. And we're at a restaurant, and if you've met Asher, he likes to stem, and he's vocal with his stemming. And we were sitting at a restaurant, and he's stemming, and we're used to it.
Right.
And and like they had some people that were sitting next to us who they didn't know, and it's okay. I've accepted that. Not everybody knows, and they were frustrated with it, and they moved to another seat and pretty much muttered to us that like control your child, and that was where, and everybody probably has the same story if they have a child with autism. And after that, I'm like, all right, I want to provide people with the awareness to where then they can accept and see it.
Right.
And that's where we went through there, and then we did these wristbands for baseball one year, and then I switched over to softball, and then we went helmet stickers for both baseball and softball. But there's one thing that when you're an autism parent, there's certain costs that come up, and that's where the Ace of Hearts Foundation really was started.
Okay, and what are those costs? What do you mean by that?
And sometimes, like if you go and let's just say a regular bicycle for a 5-year-old kid, it would be $100 at Walmart. Right. Well, a special needs.
I wish I could get them for 100. You know, we do bikes for kids here in the summer. It's about 125 is our normal.
Okay, so 125.
Yeah, but you're right.
Inflation. I wasn't counting.
Yeah, no, hey, no, you're in the ballpark. You're roundabout right.
So, and look, and when you have special needs, is that you need a special needs bike,
right?
And those things go for thousands of dollars. And it's a tough decision that you have to make. And how it started was we went to go get we wanted to get Asher a service animal, and we had saved up money for the dog.
We did the dog, okay.
And then we needed the training. And when we got the price,
that's incredibly expensive, as I understand it, right?
And it was. And Karen and I were talking about it. And I'm a very prideful person. I struggle asking. My wife gets mad at me for it because I just struggle. So I typed this message to all my friends, and then I just said, all right. I just put the phone down, and I'm like, all right, I'm not even gonna look at the phone, because you kind of have that embarrassed thing that you need something.
Yeah, no, that's got to be one of the hardest things you've ever done. But man, you ought to be so proud of yourself for doing it. I mean, that is a dad moment where you earn every inch of the title of dad, right? I mean, going to your buddies for that'd be tough.
And I walked away. I was like, all right, well, I'm hoping. And when I went back about 15 minutes later, like I might start tearing up thinking about it, is that every one of them responded and was like, let's do this. All right, let's meet. Within a week we met, and then we had all the principals for it. And my thing was, if you guys are having fun with it, let's go ahead and make a thing out of it. It keeps us together. It drives us close, and they're like all in. And that's so cool. And that's where, I mean, youth sports built that moment.
Yeah,
And the friends that I have is I truly can say this. I have some of the best friends in the world.
Yeah. Well, and I had the privilege of watching so many of your buddies grow up with you, and they didn't just take a quick beat, cut a check, or just help you and your kid. They signed on to help you guys bring these benefits to the community at large, right? I mean, they said, put me on the paperwork. I'll be a board member. I'll volunteer. I'll write a check. I mean, it's really kind of neat. I get goosebumps thinking about it, because, I didn't even think to interview you until one of your buddies, I think it was Corey Gonzalez, but somebody reached out to me when we started this show, and they're like, you got to get Trevor on there to talk about Ace of Hearts. This is a great program. And I probably heard from 2 or 3 of your buddies, you know. I think maybe I saw Wes at the ballpark last season, and he's like, "Yeah, y'all got to do that, man." And it's they're so enthusiastic about this project, and it's so neat. And I know how important that is. You're not the first guest to come on this show and talk about the challenges of being a parent in the autistic community. Mr. James Square, who is beloved, you know, at the junior high, he's talked about the challenges that he faces with his adult son, Joseph. And you're right, awareness is the key. And he talked about it in the context of policing and all the things that go into that. But it's just so important. So when you're talking to somebody like me who may be ignorant of what a day in the life is like for an autistic parent or kid, you know, what are some of the few things we should start with besides compassion? What are some things to look for? How can we help and be true allies and supportive of your community?
And this is where I have to brag really about my wife is it's literally a team. It's like clockwork. We're constantly working together. And look, I hit a goal. I struck gold because it's tough within the family. And then Madison and Caleb have really stepped up. They've had to give personal sacrifices that a lot of other kids would be afforded, because it's like we can't go out and see them as much, and they've taken it and they've been really supportive of it, and they come in when they're at the house. They're playing with Asher. I've really struck gold with my family.
Yeah. I'm happy for you because you deserve it. They struck gold with you. So let's hit that story, because one thing I've learned 60 or 70 episodes into this show is that our viewers here in Ponchatoula love a good love story. So, you know, I'm looking here in the comments, and Mandy says that your wife, Kara, is so similar to your mom, Miss Judy, kind, giving, patient, an incredible mother, teacher. Tell us about your wife. How'd y'all meet? You know, what's the story there?
We went. She was living in Houston at the time, and we went to a Houston Texans game, and then we ended up not even thinking, and then we just started communicating with each other, and then next thing you know, she's coming back and forth over, and then she moved over here, and
cool.
And that's pretty much the rest of the story.
Here we are 3 kids later, and you guys are you're doing great. Now, what about the daughters? Tell me about Madison and Kayla. They're a bit older now. What are they into?
Madison, she's at Southeastern, and somehow she's majoring in education.
Cool.
So she's staying close. She kind of has a knack for with individuals like Asher. She called us. She called Kara, and Kara told me the story that she went and basically did like an APE, which is it's adaptive PE with special needs kids, and she taught it, and she was like, "I just love this." So you can definitely tell, like she's doing great with it. Caleb he's at Louisiana Tech. He's doing a fantastic job over there.
And how old is Caleb now?
He's 18.
Okay, cool.
And he's over at Louisiana Tech, and we got a chance to see him a couple weeks ago. He came into town, and he's very supportive with Asher. Is that when, like, you just know, like that's like the best thing about it, when they're together. It's you just gotta see it to see how they interact, and
you got that brother bear energy going there. Yeah,
yes.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Well, at 18, I know I didn't have a major or a plan yet. Does he know what he wants to study?
He's going into engineering.
Oh wow, you got a brain on your hand.
he's really good at putting things together, and he's got more patience in that aspect than what I would, because like he's put things together, and I'm like, I'm done after 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, I think, you're such a modest guy. You were teacher of the year at Mandeville High. I mean, Mandeville Skippers, that's one of the best schools in the whole state, right? So you may not be giving yourself your just due there, but let me ask you this: as a teacher, when you talk about patience in particular, what are the keys there to breaking through to a kid? I mean, you kind of mentioned earlier your philosophy on getting through to kids as a coach, but in the classroom as a teacher for the future engineers or special needs, educators or whatever of the world, what have you view as kind of some keys to reaching those young ones?
I try to make the connection to real life things. And I'm blessed that I teach business, and a lot of times is that they're going to use business that's out there
Right.
after they get out of high school. So what I try to do is I try to get them as much information for them to have at their disposal. And hopefully maybe one day that they'll go out there and start their own business. And I've had a few students who have, right out of high school, they've invested into a business, and as a teacher, that it just makes you proud that these kids are going, because look, they're the future.
Yeah.
We're not, like, there's always going to be a generation that is going to lead. The biggest thing is that just to understand where they're coming from. And because, like, every day it's a new day.
Yeah.
And you just show that compassion to them, and show that you care about them. And I just want to give that information at their disposal to where they can go lead.
Right.
It's going to be their society one day.
Well, clearly you're excelling. I mean, they wouldn't be making you teacher of the year and giving you all the responsibility that they have. Let's take a look at where you drew that from. And earlier, I kind of asked you about the impact your parents had on you, and the good work you're doing now. When we're looking at the teacher angle of this, when you think back to your days at Ponchatoula High or the junior high or Southeastern or wherever, who are some educators that come to mind that had an impact on you? Because once upon a time you were teaching kids the same age, or getting taught, you were a kid the same age as these kids you're teaching. Who do you remember really having an impact?
I do, man. It's from the coaching aspect of it is like you and Kevin Rayford and Jared Ryan. Yeah. That y'all showed us to come back and help us out. And I've always taken that whenever I was younger. It's like, that's kind of what I want to do. And then when you go through high school, I had some phenomenal teachers, and I actually a couple of them is Miss Coretto, who's the principal at the junior high.
Oh, she's awesome, isn't she?
Yes, Miss Van Pran, and I actually was able to see Miss Van Pran at a basketball game, and I really thanked her for giving me the guidance of, hey, I kind of like this. And then going through, and then you'd have, and this is probably everybody, Coach Grievous.
The legend, Steve Grievous.
And I ran into him at Alumni Day for Southeastern, and we were able to catch up, and I wasn't able to tell him how much of an impact he had on me. But also, like, Coach Melvin Myers
but you followed in their footsteps. I mean, those guys played at Southeastern like you did, and then went on to coach locally. So I bet that's pretty neat for them to see somebody follow their path.
Yeah,
and take it to the next generation. That's really cool.
And the best thing about teaching is man, just when I decided to go back into teaching, I didn't have any experience prior, and the administration at Mandeville, like they've done a great job of supplying me what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
I know that a couple of principals that are there, they coached against me whenever I was a student coach at Ponchatoula.
Right.
And then the other teachers that really helped out. I remember walking in and I'm like, oh, what? One day they're going to shut the door. What am I going to do? And there was one teacher, Miss Dean. She helped me through that, and then teachers do really help each other when you get there. You have the mentors growing up, but when you get there, you have that great support.
Well, you know, you need that. I work with a great former teacher who you may remember, Danny Williams, Dr. Danny Williams now, who was a teacher and then a principal and then a central office administrator, and just a brilliant guy. But we talk about it all the time, and we've been watching this show, Abbott Elementary, which is, I guess, about an inner city school in Philadelphia, and he's telling me how it's really pretty similar in a lot of ways to what went on at the little elementary schools he was at in Ponchatoula, and it takes a village, is I guess what I'm saying, because it's challenging. And I think, a little while ago, we're talking about a comment from Mark Verbois, and Mark, like you, found teaching and coaching not right out of school. He is a guy who has had, been very successful in different careers, from business through, big companies like Enterprise to the plants. Heck, he's a sports announcer by trade, right? I mean, that's what he studied for school. But he's in his first year teaching and coaching. And I know from talking to him as a friend that if he doesn't have other mentors in the teaching community at PHS, he's totally lost out there, because once that door closes, it's you, 25, 30, whatever kids, you're kind of out there on your own. And so what advice would you give as somebody who's now a grizzled veteran of 6 years and winning awards as the top guy in the school, to somebody like Mark, who's in year one, and if he's having a tough day and it seems overwhelming, what advice would you give him or somebody else new to teaching?
Look, and find that group of teachers that's going to, and they get what you're going through. Find that teacher, and that's how I received a ton of support and a ton of help, and to where, just to pay it forward, is that find those teachers that are willing to help, because the common goal is all the same, is to get these kids, to get these students out, and hopefully they can be model citizens and successful individuals.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Well, folks, we're here with Coach Trevor Bergeron, and we've had a lot more encouraging comments, flood in here that I want to share. Marshall Graves, who commented earlier, he says that, Coach, you not only knew your own kids in sports, but you knew all the other kids too. And I noticed, I coached basketball with Marshall this year. He helped my kindergarten team. And I noticed that about him. It's a mark of a great coach, is to kind of become aware of all the players around. And look, it's easy to remember the Trevor Bergeron and, little Marshall Graves of the world, who are star players. But, Coach Marshall knows the guys like my kid who are coming off the bench and maybe not stars. So that's a quality I admire in you. Speaking of great coaches, the mother of a great coach, Debbie Gildner, whose son, of course, is coach at Champ Cooper. She says that you're a great guy, and she just loves the Bergeron family. Miss Debbie, good to hear from you. Billy was one of those kids at that 40-year-old campout I was talking about earlier. Don't worry, he was on his best behavior. Brittany's back here, and she was a coach herself, I think, at Fontainebleau, where your wife used to teach and coach. And she says that talk about PYB. This is when we were chatting about that earlier.
Her family was within that same
board.
Yeah,
well, and her interview,
so we grew up together.
It
was 8 to 9, 8 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. We're all running around the gym.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Timeouts, getting shots up.
Oh hey, your mother-in-law's on here, Miss Jackie. She says she's proud of her son-in-law, as you should be, Miss Jackie, and your daughter. Just wonderful people. And man, talk about PYB legends. The great Corey Jackson, who I'm sure you remember well. One of the best players I ever had the privilege to coach or see in action. and just a great guy. He says you're a very good guy. And to that, I would say, Corey, it takes one to know one, man. So
it's a full circle because
yeah.
I was able to coach against his son, who's a freshman at
No.
school. Yes.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm sitting there the first time, and when we were saying, like, he looks just like his dad.
Yeah.
And he sounds just like his dad. And the big thing is I asked him.
You're terrified. Like, you're like, is he going to play just like his dad?
Oh, no. Play like your dad? And then, unfortunately, yeah, for us, yes. It's great. It's great for Ponchatoula.
That's great. Well, sometimes that's all you can do is look at parents. In basketball, we were blessed with what was probably the best player in the league. Great little kid named Reese. And as Marshall and I are there at the draft, 5- and 6-year-old league, it's their first year playing ball. You haven't seen any of these guys in the court. So all I know is my kid can't hit the rim yet. That's all I know going in. But we're looking at the draft, and then we see the mama, and we're like, oh, that's Christy Lewis and Martinez Lewis's nephew. And Christy, like, you just draft by parentage. And sometimes it works out, sometimes not. But it sounds like with Corey, he passed it on down. Mandy's back. I already shared her comment earlier. It's a wonderful one about your wife. Lisa Hidalgo says she loves Coach Trevor. Thank you. Miss Sandra Miller, thank you for watching. So good to hear from you. Boy, your son Bradley was a beast. He gave us heck every time I coached against him. Great kids, both your kids, him, Jewel, the whole gang. They're wonderful. Mandy says there's a lot of great coaches from PHS. Must be something about the staff. You got your start there, right? So who brought you to PHS for your student coaching, and who were you with back then?
It was it kind of felt like yesterday, but now a lot of these kids now are not kids. They're friends. I remember it was right after Southeastern. I went straight, and I was still going to Southeastern as a student. And Coach Gosnell, it was actually Alan Waddell who was like, "Come on, let's go! Like,
yeah,
this would be awesome." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do this." And he got me. Because Coach Gosnell coached us.
So you were at Southeastern when he was still coaching there before he came to Ponchatoula.
Well, he went to Ponchatoula, I think, my junior year, and then senior year, he was a full assistant, and then right after we graduated, he became the head coach.
Gotcha.
And I went back, and he another one that took a chance on me, and Logan Davis, speaking of, he was a senior my first year there, and then the second year was where we made that nice little run, got to the quarterfinals, state tournament where there was still 8 teams, and lost to a very good Barb team who had I felt like they've had a draft pick every other guy.
Yeah. Those guys are stacked. That's really cool, man. So was my pal Philip Bankston still helping out back then, or
no? Philip, he helped us, and when I was playing, him and Ben Perrin were doing the American Legion, and that's another mentor of why do I want to do it is because of guys like that.
Yeah, what a great duo they are. Philip's been a guest on the show, gave a great interview. Ben's one of my oldest best friends. I was his Corey Gonzalez growing up. When he was the ace of the St. Joseph pitching staff, I was his catcher. And he just a great guy, man. He's a wonderful father and friend and husband and just a great guy. So sounds like you had great mentors who kind of helped you show the way. Speaking of that, a great mentor, one of your second moms here, Miss Beth Gonzalez, has commented that 100%. She and her husband, Mr. Jay, and your buddy Corey are all very proud of you. Miss Beth, good to see you. You were one of my favorite moms back when I was coaching Corey back in the day. I think you made every practice. You were super encouraging of him and the rest of the team. Your beautiful bride has chimed in here. She says, Trevor, that she's super proud of you, and you are the best husband, daddy, coach, teacher, and man of God, and she loves you. Kara, thank you. I know how busy you must be. What's that mean to you to see a Wonder Woman like that chiming in your corner?
Wonder Woman is the correct word for it. I'm blessed. We actually said that a couple weeks ago. It was kind of like teamwork for it. there's times where she might be busy, and then I'll pick it up. And especially right now, whenever I'm doing softball, she picks up a lot of the slack right there. I'm super thankful for it.
That's awesome. That's yeah. It's so great to see a good power couple support one another. Well, I promised I'd get you out of here in time to get back to your beautiful family. But before I do, I want to ask, is there anything else on your mind, on your heart, just anything we didn't cover that you'd like to talk about while we have a few minutes?
Just a few things is that we're coming up on April 2nd is Autism Awareness Day.
Right.
And I have been blessed. I mean, I live in Ponchatoula, but I really call home that Highway 22 corridor from Ponchatoula to Mandeville,
right.
Because the support that we've gotten from both communities is it makes us feel way better. And whenever we're at first going through it, is there's not any other two communities than Ponchatoula and Mandeville that had our backs, and they've taken it and ran with it. I remember, hopefully I don't go too long with this.
We got plenty of time. Take your time.
We have just going back a couple years ago with baseball, is those guys, and they're all graduated and they're in college now, that they showed that they always had my back. I can leave Asher with them at any time. And when I did switch from baseball to softball, I was like, oh, it was a tough decision because it was an unknown. And
right.
Coach Harper, I remember seeing him at Lockrett, and he was like, look, they'll touch your heart. And they absolutely have, in a bunch of different ways. And we have a manager. His name is Alex Diorcourt. He is a senior at Mandeville. And he decided to come with us and be a manager for softball. And holy smokes, if you have not seen the video of how they interact with him, it is amazing. Is they've accepted him into their team. He's a
so
part
cool.
of the team.
Yeah.
And that's look,
powerful. Wow.
Individuals with autism, and it's not just with softball, it's with basketball as well, is that an individual autism, they're not really too much part of teams.
Yeah.
But those girls,
for them to have that opportunity.
Those girls have absolutely accepted him, and like he's super excited. He gets to the field, he's working super hard with it.
Yeah.
And
circling back to your nonprofit, I mean, the issue of awareness. Think about what you're doing for awareness there. This whole team is getting a bird's eye view of the reality, of the autistic experience, and is able to carry that into their lives, so that if one of them ends up marrying a knucklehead like me who's ignorant, I mean, I'm blessed to have a wife who works in pupil appraisal for a living, and she's always trying to, educate me on this issue among others. But man, you are really just spreading such greatness, not just for his individual experience, which is awesome, but for the awareness. I mean, kudos, man. That's just really powerful stuff, man. That's amazing. So Autism Awareness Day, you said, is April 2nd, right?
It's April 2nd. We're having
does the month go throughout all of April? How does that work?
Yeah, we treat it as is. The main day is April 2nd, but they treat it as Autism Awareness Month. And we're having an inaugural softball tournament. We have 6 teams in it. We're host sites between Lakeshore and Mandeville High School, and the support from the other schools as well. whenever I came out and said who needs stickers, it was Dearborn Woods in Farmerville, Louisiana, which is way up north near Arkansas.
Right.
And they have South Beauregard that is on the west side near Lake Charles area.
Yeah.
Lutcher is the South Shore.
So you're truly statewide, man. You're covering the whole state.
Yeah, and I just want to use this and we all want to be through acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for it to get to acceptance, we have to be aware. And, and people asking questions is if somebody comes up to ask me a question, I'm excited about it, because that's one more person that's wanting to learn about it.
So for those of us that would like to help, whether it's, stroking a check or getting involved, how can we reach out to you guys? Where will we go to get information, get contacts? Who do we contact? How do we go about helping?
Okay. Is through the foundation, and we're going to get the guys on at a later date. It's the Ace of Hearts Foundation.
We're gonna. So just so you know, and for the guys watching, the board, the organization, you guys have an open invitation anytime. Hit me up. April 2nd or any other date, we'll get you on here and broadcast back to the town. So you're saying, I'm sorry.
And we have a Facebook page.
Okay.
If you're looking for a little bit more information, is you can go there and ask questions. Stephen Alexander, Wes Wilson, Corey Gonzalez, Elizabeth Wilson. If you can reach out to them, I think our email address is aceofheartsfoundation@icloud.com. I could be wrong, but you can email. We're pretty regular on posting stuff, and we get back with you on answering questions. But we want, and Wes and them will tell you this, is that we want to provide, we want to find families around here. And if it's one family at a time versus multiple families, is that we understand. And I've got the greatest friends ever that will come there, and they're all in.
That's awesome, man. Well, I tell you what, we could talk another hour, and then your wife would kill you, and so would mine. But, thank you, Trevor, for making the time to come here with me. I want to share a few comments here in closing, because I think Braylon Watts Sr. here sums it up, that Trevor, you're just an outstanding person, a friend, an athlete, and he's so glad you're having success in your coaching and your career, and so am I. So is Miss Sandra Miller, who says here, your interview's been awesome. I couldn't agree more. So to our viewers, thank you for tuning in to talk to this or watch this exceptional person share his story with Ponchatoula. Trevor, as busy as you are, thank you for sharing your time with us. And we will get you and your whole board back on here to talk about the Ace of Hearts Association. I just found on a window in my computer here, it's right there on Facebook. And I think it's at Ace of Hearts Foundation. Pretty easy to find if you just, search for it in Facebook, and try to help these guys if you can, because they're doing great work in the community. So with nothing further to say, we thank you.